Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio, e buonasera, Lazio world. Welcome to your instant reaction pod. I'm your host, Sean McIntosh. Big time reunion, joined once again from my long lost friend, Caleb Adams, here to review Atalanta Lazio. Caleb only shows up for the good times, but we are here to discuss a statement match, a statement performance, a statement victory here today. Atalanta 0, Lazio 1. Caleb Adams, how the heck are you, my friend?
Man, I've been good. I've been on the road a lot, so I do apologize for my absences. I have been nearly gone for the entire month of March on the road with my new job. So life's getting in the way, but I'm still catching these games when I can, and hopefully I keep catching these good ones.
Yeah, and today was certainly one of those. I tell you what, I should maybe, I don't know, Laziali are tend to lean a little bit more pessimistic anyways. I should just go into every match with the same mentality I went into this one. Woke up this morning, it's a beautiful Sunday in Las Vegas. My wife knows that there's a Lazio match today, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna get throttled. And she was like, oh, great. I guess you're gonna be in a grumpy mood today. And I was like, no, I expect it. I'm going in protecting my heart a little bit. I was like, it's the ones that are against your Lecces or a 5-0 against Bologna that really, really put me in a mood. And so today I was like, just hoping we don't embarrass ourselves. And you get into the flow of this match and you start to feel like, hey, maybe there's an opportunity here. And the way that Atalanta came out, the things that, the way that we were set up, and we'll dive into this, but it set up a little bit differently, started to give me hope. And then, of course, we go up, and then I was like, uh-oh, I have some expectations. And this is when it usually crushes me. So great result, feeling great, a fantastic weekend for all of our football sides. Both of us, having worked for Charlotte FC, still support that club. Big win, being down 1-0 and coming from behind 2-0. And then the club that I run, Las Vegas Lights here, had a big win yesterday.
Dang, 3 for 3.
3 for 3. Footballing gods shining down on us and me.
How are the Stars doing?
I mean, the Stars are one of the hottest teams in the NHL. We're like, back from first in the NHL. So fighting for that number 2 seed in the Western Conference. I'm ready for playoffs, baby. Texas Rangers are first in their division. Sports is great now.
Let's go, Canes. Let's go.
Well, let's jump into this one. A lot to talk about. Wasn't expecting a positive podcast, but we'll play a little bit of catch up too, since you and I haven't had a chance to do this, just to kind of take a look at the totality and where Lazio is right now. But we'll jump in where we always do, the starting 11. Really important because there were a number of changes. Some of those changes a result of Baroni decisions, and others, limited due to injury. So, or yellow card suspensions in the case of Guendouzi. So right off the bat, biggest change, Mandas taking Provedel's spot. And obviously we'll dive into his performance. At left back, we see the return of Nuno Tavares, a pretty brief return. We've got Gigot in for an injured Romagnoli, Gila, and then your right back, Lazzari, Rovella manning the middle with Belayan in place of the suspended Guendouzi, Zaccagni, Dele Bashiru getting the nod behind Dia, and then a bit of a surprise, Chauna getting the start in place of Isaacson. And this match honestly started off very, very sloppy for both sides. You saw two teams maybe playing outside of their capabilities. It just seemed like neither had a ton of technical soundness today, sloppy in their passing. Even Atalanta, who are in a bit of a dip themselves since the start of the new year, really both sides in similar positions just seem to be crashing down to earth after really hot starts this year. At one point, Atalanta in a Scudetto race. At one point, Lazio, the sweethearts of Serie A, fighting for Champions League. Both sides really, really showing how far they've fallen in that first half. Really, really poor. But we saw a Lazio side that was quite organized in defense and had some, all but brief, but some moments where you saw an ability that they could punish Atalanta if given some chances. So, I think you saw kind of your same suspects, Zaccagni really putting in some nice moments. But the first half, relatively dreadful for the most part. It's in the 33rd minute, though, that we see our first substitution. Nuno goes down with another injury. A little bit of disputes because of Atalanta continuing to push forward and play while the player's down. But we make the sub. In comes Pellegrini for Nuno. And then we kind of go into the half without really having done much. But neither had Atalanta. Halftime substitution, Isaacson for Chauna, which has a huge impact on this one. And it is in the 54th minute where we break through. And it is a Mandas ball, a very direct ball to Dele Bashiru, who completely changes this match after what I would classify as a dreadful first half from him. Does incredibly well to win the ball, head it to an open Isaacson, who has a nice finish, a diving shot to get it past Carnesecchi, who is one of the elite keepers in Serie A. It is 1-0 Lazio. And then from there, we essentially see a side that does what they have so often failed to do this season and fight their way to a clean sheet. 1-0 Lazio. Caleb Adams, give me your 3 words or less to describe this match.
Remember, long time coming. It's been a really long second half of the season so far, but I think a result like this and a performance like this, I think it stretches back even to the first half of the season where we've struggled to pick up 3 points against these top sides. We're now in April, right? We're in April, and it feels like this is the first big result we've had against a big team, big side for a really long time. I hope that it's going to be sort of something that we can continue to take into this kind of final stretch of the season where things don't get any easier. We still have some difficult matches to play, but it's been a long time coming, and that also refers to Baroni's adjustments as well. There's a lot of things in this match that I think were very positive because it wasn't just a fluke of a result. It's one thing to get a result like this and it'd be kind of like a bit of a fluke, but I genuinely thought that we earned this one. I thought Baroni has some good decisions when it came tactically. I thought he set up our mid-block well, which we have struggled to do all season long. We have not been able to defend in the mid-block like all year long. It's either we go all in or nothing when it comes to the press. It was nice to see a bit of in between today. A lot of balance too in that midfield as well. And also players showing up that needed to show up when other players are out, right? We've been wanting some players to kind of step in, make some impacts when we're losing guys like Guendouzi, missing quite a bit of starters. So this has been a long time coming, and I hope it continues.
Yeah, my 3 words: defensive and direct. We obviously were really sound today, come away with a clean sheet, which has been a struggle for us. I thought you mentioned the mid block. It just the way we were set up was so much more balanced. I think that has been one of my biggest frustrations with Baroni, particularly in these quote unquote big matches against strong sides. We've seen a resistance to change, which is, I know baffled both of us. And you've talked about his why it's particularly confusing given the clubs he's managed and having to play a lot smarter and really bunker down and play in low blocks and rely on counterattacking football and just his resistance to that. And today we saw a side that was a little bit more defensive, that was really smart in their shape, and then in those moments was extremely direct. And that is obviously how we scored the goal and had so many moments. And we've got players. I mean, one of the exciting things coming into this season was the fact that We had brought in more dynamic players, your Nunos. We talked about Isaacson last year being a lot more direct and willing to take
Mm-hmm.
players on, and you bring on players like Dia and Noslin, and we just haven't really used them to their abilities. Dele
Mm-hmm.
Bashiru, a very strong athletic player, not really being used oftentimes to their strengths. And today it was a side that a lot more direct and being quicker in their decision making. And then when they needed to, there were some sequences of plays towards the back 25 minutes, 75th minute. There was a particular sequence in like the 73rd to
Mm-hmm.
75th minute where we just played brilliantly. I mean, the level of possession, Rovella, a pure maestro in some of those moments where we were not just cycling play, but we were finding gaps and Atalanta really being forced to defend. And this is when we had a lead, and maintaining possession the way that we were doing was really, really fantastic stuff. And it ultimately led to a Pellegrini shot that forced a really strong Carnesecchi save where we won a corner off of. So I just thought fantastic defensive and direct effort that I'd like to see a lot more of, particularly with the
Mm-hmm.
Derby looming. So I thought that was really, really well done. Tell me, Caleb, a little bit of what you saw tactically that ultimately allowed us to stifle a side that is known for scoring goals. They've got the
Mm-hmm.
capocannoniere leader in Retegui. They've got Lookman, who
Mm-hmm.
obviously found very, very little space in this one. What did you see tactically?
Yeah, man, this is a good squad that Atalanta have. Like, there's a lot of talent all the way around. And I mean, just to give you like some perspective on how we shut down Lookman and Retegui, I mean, they got 5.5 averages on FotMob. Take these ratings for what it is, but the eye test also backs that. They were invisible. Retegui couldn't even get the ball. And I think a lot of that came down to the discipline of our center mids. Our center mids, Guendouzi and Ravella have been great, but whether it's instruction or whether it's just like they're just hungry, a lot of times they get caught out of position chasing people out wide. I saw a lot more discipline in Rovella and Belayan in this case, who came in. We can talk about him because he had an excellent game. And even Dele Bashiru, I thought all three of the midfield were really disciplined and not overexerting themselves out and exposing the team. I thought there's a team that if you give them a little bit of a gap, they can hurt you. And I think maybe it might be too late from Baroni, but he kind of sees that maybe that over aggression from the midfielders is the reason why we've been caught out and conceded goals in recent times. But whether it was instruction, whether it was just the individual players recognizing the midfield discipline and making sure that they were going to be right in front of the defensive line, making sure they weren't going to overexert themselves, chasing people wide. I thought that was really the key. And that discipline, you need it in a mid block. A mid block doesn't work if you have players getting stretched out wide and pushing a little too hard up the field. So it was just more, like you said, it was just a more balanced approach. Is we put pressure in situations when they got out wide, we would double team. But when they're passing the ball in the middle, you just kind of sit around, wait for those right moments to pressure instead of just kind of being chickens without a head, just chasing people around. So, like I said, whether that's instruction or play recognition, that's what we've been needing.
Yeah. Well, I think too, we so often are pressing so aggressively and
Mm-hmm.
we're playing high up the pitch that our attacking trio or our attacking quadrant of
Mm-hmm.
players are so far stretched that it forces oftentimes Rovella to then find a man that's not being covered, and then it stretches
Mm-hmm.
him, and so he obviously is. We've said this before. I mean, he's without a doubt, without question, there's no debate about it. One of the maybe and perhaps the best ball winning midfielder in
Mm.
the world. I'll say it. And today he was on full display. But Belian, wow, I think so. There's before I get into him and in our midfield, there was so much space being given to us because Atalanta was playing a much higher line and they were a bit sloppy and they seemed to have a lack of confidence when they were playing the ball. And our friend Erfan, who's in our chat right now, brought this up as well as we were watching the match. And We were texting. He talked about that space being given, and it was our lack of being able to technically exploit that. You saw some of the intent, and then until we were able to actually exploit it, I mean, it was there. The space was there,
Yeah.
and so. But when it comes to what's interesting about this, I leave the match so excited on a high note. A bit of relief knowing that maybe Baroni does have this in his bag. The ability to change the way we play. So that's a relief. But I'll tell you what, there's also the flip side where I'm a little bit annoyed, a little bit
Mm,
aggravated that
mm,
like we've been asking for this, and it's we have one of the most dreadful second halves of a season that we've seen in years, and we talk about some of the players too that have not had opportunities, and we've been asking for these opportunities. We've seen glimpses of a Belayan, and it seems like Banoni is only going to give some of these guys, which is weird because he was praised, rightfully so, for his the willingness to play new players
mm,
early in the season. But it's like we don't get Belayan today without Genduzi being suspended. We don't
mm,
get Profsgaard without Gigot being hurt. And
mm,
we saw from Belayan, forget like, and this is what I've been saying for a couple weeks, is we're not saying that this guy has to start every single game, but
mhm,
we've been in desperation. And you're telling me he's not capable of some of these spot moments. And today he showed us, no, 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 no. He's not just like a fill-in player. This dude,
mhm.
it was incredible. In every moment that he's come in, he has been fantastic. He has been Rovella 2.0
Yeah.
for us. And the duo of them today was some of the best ball winning, tackling moments, completely putting the clamps on Lookman. I mean, there were some moments in this match that I go back to. 29th minute, just Rovella, world class tackle and defending on Lookman. I mean, he wins the ball, and then immediately what he does so well is some of his like quick turns and
Mm,
and then getting fouled to stop any sort of a dangerous moment from Lazio. And Belayan again doing some of those same things, some critical tackles inside of the box. I just thought the combo of them were absolutely brilliant, and he brings something. Again, he's a little bit more Rovella than anything else, but it just gives us a combination now to do something
mm.
differently than Genduzi brings. And obviously, Genduzi, an absolute beast. It's just nice to now know we have a little bit more versatility in the combination of those two.
Yeah, man. I think it probably leads us into who we thought our man of the match was. And I'll go ahead and say mine. It was Belayan. Man, he's 20 years old. It's just crazy. I watch him today's performance. It's hard to believe he's 20 years old. But today, to kind of back what you said from a statistical point of view, he had the most tackles won in the match, 5, and won the most duels in the match with 10. He out tackled and outdueled Rovella, who is statistically one of the best in the world at this. Um, so, I mean, that's his own partner there. And so both of them were on top of it, which is a good thing because we were lacking some of that attacking quality today. Even Zaccagni was a little bit slower than usual. I mean, he wasn't as noticeable. We had some good moments here and there, but our midfield is always going to be the big signifier. This pivot is going to be the real shot of winning or not. Like if they were on, we have a chance. If they were not on today, we're screwed. I mean,
Yeah.
frankly, with Romagnoli out, but Belayan took his first start and really ran with it. I thought he was excellent. Also want to give a special shout out to another 20-year-old. Well, he's a little bit older, 21, who came in with the debut himself, and that was Profsgaard. Came in into this is his first ever Serie A match, and it's Atalanta, uh, holding a lead away on the road. He has some great little moments where he made a tackle, made a huge interception to keep us to keep the lead for us. In addition to that, has some good moments on the ball. Really liked what I saw from him today, and I'm glad that we're seeing this, but like you said, it's a little frustrating because we needed these guys before. There were matches where like we needed to rotate now and we didn't. It's nice to know we can do that, from here to the end of the season with Europa League and all that. But want to give a big shout out also to Profsgaard, and two other ones is Isaksen and Mandas. Isaksen came in, scored the goal. Shauna, I mean, he's honestly just trash. I'm just gonna say it out front. Like, Chandler's just it's just trash. I'm really not seeing any like saving grace in his game, and I haven't seen it for a long time. Where I'm like, but you could at least with the Saxon last year, you were like, no, I can see it. I can see what we see in the Saxon. I can see what management sees in the Saxon. This willingness to attack people.
Well, the thing with these Oxen was, I mean, last year he was actually solid. Like he
Yeah,
was
it
actually, like
was.
it was this year, it was the first half of this year, which probably made it more frustrating because we were like, what happened to the guy that we saw last year under, Sadi's real structured and we were so frustrated, but he was the one guy that we were like, okay, that's exciting. He's willing.
Right, exactly.
But with Chauna, to your point, like there has never been one moment that we can go back to. Even we'll talk about Noslin, who I thought was garbage too, but like at least he had that Napoli. At least he had that one time that we can go back to.
Right.
Chauna, it's like
no, it's rough, and again, big shout out to my Fought Mob actually had him as a man of the match. And I thought he was excellent. Made a huge save in the 49th minute. Was secure with the ball for the most part. Came up with a big. I thought the ball went over him at the very end where he secured it. Remember that when he secured it, like when the cross. I was like, oh boy, like I've seen Provedel this season kind of like whiff that and kind of miscalculate that. Mandas was able to snatch it out of the air. It was a little behind him, but he still snatched it out of the air. Came in, made the saves he needed to make, felt comfortable within the back. So, yeah, I think it was just very encouraging performance because it's one thing to see Zaccagni and Rovella having great games, but actually seeing other guys like come up with something big and make an impact is really encouraging.
Yeah. I agree. I think I really looked at Rovella and Belayan as kind of being a unit, almost wanting to give it to just the combo of them. But I think because it was his I think it was his first start. I may be wrong there, but obviously we've been clamoring to see a little bit more of Belayan, a match as big as this, 20 years old. I'm with you. I would give it to him today. But look, obviously you shouted out everybody that deserves shouting, and it's a huge testament. You don't walk away with a match like this and have a clean sheet above anything, a clean sheet without everybody playing their part. There were so many strong performers. I think I messaged and I was like, look, in order for us to have any chance here, you need world class from Rovella. You need Zaccagni to be on. We need Gila to be back to being Gila. And I thought Gila was really strong today. I mean, Gigot was good. There was no, there was a couple moments from players that we were like, "What are you guys doing?" But not as frequent. And what I really liked from I mentioned Dele Bashido. I think first half I was, he would have been my bidone. I thought he was kind of single-handedly killing some of our attacks and just some of his passing. Decision making, the passes were off, but massive kudos to him because I thought he was a completely different player in the second half. I wanted to see him get subbed off for a Pedro, who obviously comes with that technical ability in attack. I thought we needed a Pedro to finally break through. So I love when I see a player that can make that change, can clean it up, can address his own issues, because it just shows a really strong mentality from Dele Bashiru. So just wanted to give him a shout on that front. And obviously Mandas, you said it, huge from him and coming up with a couple saves, but there was just moments and maybe it's because maybe we look at some of this maybe overly positive where it should just be like normal goalkeeping, but obviously some of the challenges with Provedel recently make Mandas look better than he maybe is. Not to not give him credit, but it was like we were seeing some things where I was like, oh, nice, like no rebound. It's like, well, he shouldn't be giving up a rebound in some of those instances.
So
it was just good confidence.
Exactly. But I mean, that's what you want from a keeper. Like, it's a problem I found myself in this game when a ball came in. I'm like, oh, this could be really bad reflection. And Mandas actually just like snatched the deflection, just snatched it. I'm like,
on the corners, he was brilliant. There was just confidence on some of the corners. Now he did make one pass. There was a pass that made to Rovella where it's like, okay, we just need to not do those things. And unfortunately, Rovella also placed in that same situation late in the match from Gila. It was like,
Yeah.
guys, like we all love Rovella.
Trying to sabotage our boy here.
Like, I'm giving him stop playing. And Rovella, to his credit, like strong leadership of just like reaming out Gila in that moment of like, do not like, don't put him in that position. But all in all, just a really strong team performance, which leads us into, and I know we've kind of mentioned maybe some guys that didn't play incredibly well, but I feel like it is tough in a match like this where we come in where Atalanta, the heavy favorites, we're on the road, great crowd, great atmosphere, and obviously our form is not strong right now, and so I hate giving bidones for a match that, while there were some players that didn't necessarily play well, kind of your standard guys, it just feels like harsh. It sucks because this one I'm like, man, but there were some guys, and so I was kind of floating between a few, so I'm gonna go ahead and give who mine were. I know.
Wait, real quick.
Yeah.
Before you do that, I just want to mention one last thing while we're saying the positive side of man of matches. Do you know the last time you had a clean sheet?
No, I'm sure it's been a while. Go ahead.
The last time you had a clean sheet was February 22nd against Venezia. It was a 0-0 draw. Who was in goal that game?
Mandas
was the last time he started again for us.
Fair
so
enough.
I mean, like that just, I think that right there is all that needs to be said. But anyways,
again, and some credit to our to the defense, obviously, because listen, I'll just read through the stats. This was Atalanta 58% possession. Obviously, Lazio happy to concede that possession today. They were playing in that mid block, more counter-attacking. Atalanta with 10 shots, but only 2 of those on frame. So really great work from Lazio's defensive unit. A 0.53 expected goals from Atalanta. Lazio actually with exactly the same expected goals. It was even, 0.53. Obviously, Lazio finding a goal and producing a goal and outperforming their XG. Strong, but great work on the defensive front. And obviously Mandas coming up big when you need him to, which is the difference. So, but look, my bidone, I mentioned like Dele Bashiru in that first half, great job to turn it around. I know you touched on Chauna, and then I thought Dia was a little bit invisible, but he had some moments.
Good. Yeah. Quite good.
He did have some moments that a lot of times you don't think of. You're only looking for him to score. I thought he did a little bit better in being the connector. There was some nice passes towards the end of the match, and I just want to give credit to Dia for being just like, he's there. He's obviously he's been healthy. He's playing. He is being asked to do different things, whether it's him playing up top as the 9 or playing in that 10 role. But for me, the guy that really stood out as my bidone was Noslin. I texted you that like this was a big opportunity once he came into the game, and one of the things that I just want to see from him particularly are the things that excite me so much about Zaccagni and why I think Zaccagni is such a good leader. In just that he does all the dirty work, especially for such an attacking player that does bag in goals and provide assists. You see Zaccagni fighting, and in a game where we're up 1-0 and you've got Noslin, who is not performing well, has taken a big dip, is not the player that we thought he was when he came in with the transfer fee that he came in with, as a player that has played under Baroni. And he comes into a match and he just seems a little bit slower than everybody else. It comes across as lazy, and I don't need him to come in and bag a goal. I need him to come in and fight. I need him to get in there and be in the mix. And it just was too much jogging and too loose with it when he did have possession. So for me, that's my bidone, because if we would have conceded, I just have a feeling that it would have been in large part due to him, because it was a unit. We were moving really well as a unit today. Everybody was doing their part to fight back. Even Chauna at times, okay, he doesn't have it. I don't think he has like some of the IQ His movements are always off. You can't tell if he's ever played winger before. If he ever
Yeah.
plays as a 9, forget it, because he really doesn't know what to do in those moments. But I at least saw a little bit of effort from
Yeah.
him. Naslin, I just didn't see it at all. And maybe that's being harsh, but wasn't asking for a ton from him other than come in and fight, and he didn't.
I think I want to say I think it is a little harsh. I think the effort part's a little harsh. Like, yes, there were one or two instances that you're like kind of saying like, why wasn't he running? But I can also name 2 or 3 more instances where he did run back and actually win the ball and initiated some counterattacks. There's one that I remember particularly at the end where he won the ball right in front of our box and it initiated a counterattack to Dele Bashiru. I think it was Belayan. He passed it to Belayan, and then Belayan tried to play Dele Bashiru into space. And then, Bashiru was a bit tired, couldn't do anything much with it. But regardless, Nelson was
He was
bad.
3 of 7 on accurate passes too, which again,
No, yeah,
we're talking about the end of the match. Your role is we don't need you whipping the ball in. He wasn't in positions where his passes needed to be inaccurate. It was just kind of sloppy play. So fair enough if he tracked back on a couple moments, but
Well, it wasn't good. I mean, I think that's one thing too that I still don't like about this team is we are so terrible at closing games. I mean, we are god awful at it. We will give. We are so. I understand wanting to attack. I love that trying to get a second goal, but you have to understand the context. Like you have to understand the game flow and our players. I don't know what it is. It might be instruction, but we are so insistent on just like chucking it up and trying to score. Where we had so many moments where we could have just relaxed, pass the ball around, not put ourselves in bad positions. So I think across the board, that just has to be so much better because we just suck at closing out games. We just give way too many opportunities, give the ball way too softly. Nelson, a big part of the problem today with that. My bidon was, Shauna. He got yanked at the 45th minute. Enough said. He got yanked at the 45th minute. Provides nothing. He literally provides nothing. He's not only does he no, I would actually go as far to say he's actually a liability because even on it's one thing if he came in and he was a beast on defense. If he was chasing people down, making big stops, I think for people who follow Charlotte FC, I think of him like a Vargas. Even though Vargas doesn't provide much in the attack, you can count on him to run back on defense. But Shauna, terrible clearances on defense, doesn't track runners, is an awful one-on-one defender. Like he literally, I think, is just more of a liability than he is an asset when he's on the pitch or even neutral. He's not even a neutral, right? We're starting with a negative with him. And some people may say it's harsh. He's only 20, but we just saw another 20-year-old today put on an absolute clinic.
Which makes it frustrating. Why is Chauna getting so many of those opportunities? And it's like you wouldn't play Belayan until you absolutely have to, and then we see the difference in quality.
I also and just Patrick here in the comments said bad performance overall. I highly disagree with that take. I do not think this is a bad performance overall. I think we had poor individual decision making in the final third, but overall, I thought as a unit the team was well built, well set up. And you have to give kudos to Baroni for the way the team played today. Despite guys like Sakanyi, Shauna, Dia not having their brightest days, we were able to get out with the win. And that's kudos to the set that we were in. It's a very clear difference, our mid-block today compared to last games we've had. Very clear. It's just factual that the mid-block today was much better than it was in previous terms. And I think that is Baroni making adjustments where he needed to make them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, taking a look at the live table right now, Juve and Roma match has started, but we are in 6th. So we have 55 points, currently level with Juve. This Juve Roma, we would love to see a draw in that. We're only 1 point behind that 4th spot that Bologna currently retains. Bologna yet to play their weekend's match. They've got a big one against Napoli. So, it's surprisingly still everything to play for, a tight race despite our horrific form in the turn of the year. Big match next up. First leg of Europa. Bodo Glimt, Lazio this Thursday before we head to the Derby next Sunday. And then the second leg of Bodo Glimt. I mean, it's all to play for, and obviously a critical part of the season. Honestly, this is it, right, Caleb? There's nothing more important than these three matches.
Yep.
Honestly, I've told you, kind of the fate for me of Baroni lies in these matches. I think whether or not it was all smoke and mirrors to start the season, there's such a drastic flip on its head, because had we started the season the way that we've been since January, I think Baroni is out, right? Like, he's probably doesn't make it to a second half. He probably is fired in that, right? If you turn it on its head, it just so happened that we started the other way around. And so I think now today is a huge scalp. It's an important one that we've got to see if we are capable of beating and showing up to big matches. I don't want to say big sides. It is the big matches, right? It is a match against sides that you are kind of in the mix with. Roma, a derby. We have to show up. Did Baroni learn anything from the last derby? That's what I want to see. Does he come into this one? How does he set us up? Today was a plus. Huge. I thought we were set up in a way that allowed us to maximize the opportunity, and then the players went out and did what they had to do, and they executed. So Bodo Glimt, I don't want to hear any excuses. This is like, forget arrogance, forget anything. Like, we should come out of that. Whoever we draw next is, I think it's that side of the bracket gives us either, if I'm not mistaken, Frankfurt or Tottenham. That's one that we can talk about.
Yeah, it's between Frankfurt and Tottenham.
Right?
That's
like
right.
Tottenham struggling in their league. They're in the bottom third of Premier League. Frankfurt. But we're talking about two sides that have legitimate quality. Whatever happens there, we can talk about it. Zero excuse. I don't care what players we have available or what. Against Bodo Glimt, there's zero excuses. The derby's the derby. Like, we cannot get steamrolled in a derby. We need to come out and play and perform respectfully. So this is it. This is the entire season. So yeah. So how do you feel about it? What do you need to see to feel good about, I guess, Baroni and whether or not he's your guy next year?
Yeah, for me, I mentioned, right, people were talking about Baroni's record against top clubs, in the derby. For me, this right here is the deciding factors for me, or the second games. It's like, okay, I give you some grace the first games, I understand. But I want to see him continue to adapt and learn and put us in a position to succeed, and not make mind-boggling decisions when it comes to substitutes or starting decisions. I think he took a step forward with Atalanta. I may have more grace for Baroni than most people, to be fair. It has to get like really ugly from here on out for me to be like, yeah, get him out, because I hate the idea of going again with another new coach once again after building. And it still seems to me that the players are very much still bought into Baroni. Like, for me, I don't get this feeling or this sense where players are getting frustrated with the coach. More than anything, it seems as a collective, they're just frustrated because they think they believe they should be doing more and better. But not so much. There's a difference in sort of like that bitter taste you get that you can see from the players who are just like, yeah, they're not really bought into this coach anymore. Like, this is kind of collapsing. And until I see that, he's in for me. But with that said, go ahead.
Well, so is 5-0 against Bologna not collapsing?
Well, what do you mean? I don't. No, that doesn't mean like the players are turning on Baroni. That's what I mean. I don't think the players are like, screw this coach. Like, I don't want to play for him anymore. I still think they're bought into the system. I still think the collective is a collective and the unified. I don't see those cracks yet. Well, I see frustrations on the field, but I don't necessarily see him directed towards the coach or the system or anything like that. But then we don't know anything. I'm not in the locker room.
Yeah.
But from the outside, it still looks like this is a team that is still bought into the coach. With that said, for example, we had that 5-0 loss to Bologna, and we've come back and beat Atalanta, right? Like, I think a team that's defeated in the locker room just kind of comes out today, doesn't really care, comes out with a half.
Well, there was a draw in between there to a horrific Torino.
Yeah, I get that too.
So
But
my point, like, I hear you. There's you never. That's kind of the first thing that if you lose the locker room, there shouldn't be no questions. We talked about Tudor. I've said, with Tudor, it was like it was either him or Rovella Guendouzi, like adios, right? But in this case, I think Baroni, and maybe that's what he needs to start to learn is he can't always be the friendly manager to the players. There needs to be a little bit of fire, and maybe the players are too comfortable. Maybe they'll never turn on him. And because he is he's really good at making everybody feel good, but sometimes you got to have guys not feeling great. Sometimes
I get that. I get that for sure. I get that for sure.
And so I'm not, for me, I've said, I'm not staking a claim to Baroni in or out. It's always about this is the moment. This is the window that I need to see it, because great, we had an awesome start, but if what is happening now in the year, which is not, it's a strong sample size, it's greater than the sample size of all the positive. If this would have started from the beginning, we would have all been like, we got to get rid of, this is unacceptable.
Yeah, I get that.
So for me, it's, to your point, does he learn? Great, we're playing Roma the second time. We're playing these clubs the second time. What are we changing? How are we positioned? You've got players that can perform. Let's see some of them. We should have not been in the situation where guys are having to get injured or get exhausted at the end of the year, right? When we use those as excuses, well, Rovella's had to play all season, Guendouzi's had to play all season. Yeah, but they didn't have to. They just didn't have to. We've got teams that are advancing in Coppa Italia playing 10 Primavera kids, and sometimes you just have to do it so that you do have your players, your go-to guys later in the season. And so we'll see. It's all new to him, managing a side at this level, playing in Europe. I just want to make sure that he's learning and he's improving. No different than the player side of it, right? A Chauna, it's like, okay, but we just want to see progress. I'm not asking him to be the next Vinny Jr. I just want to see some progress, and he's a player that's not learning. So question is still out on Baroni. We'll see with these couple fixtures here. Bodo Glimt this is one that's really, that in the derby or everything for me in my decision making. Not that I have to have the results, because this is a cruel game where results sometimes aren't indicative of performance, but I just want to see a team that is out there and fighting and ready, and for him to set us up in a way, that can see those results. So we'll see. We'll be here to cover it. Caleb, Europa, you good for that one, or still up in the air?
I think I might be good for that. Actually, I think I might be good for that one. We'll see. I can't guarantee it because there might be quite a few meetings for me that day, but we'll see. I'll let you know.
Cool. Well, appreciate everybody tuning in. Massive fixtures, massive result. Always good to end on a positive. Clean sheet, Mandas or Provedel, 5-0 losses to 1-0 victory.